Okay, it's recording right now. I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay, so I assume everyone's ready to move on.
Once again, if you're not ready, say something in the chat. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Oh, actually, um, wait, well, before we begin, I just want to quickly paste something in chat. Throughout the class, we'll be going through a bunch of concepts, and we'll be going somewhat fast. So, in the chat, right now I'm pasting a link to a bunch of Google Slides. Well, I mean, we might use this, we might not. I'm not sure yet. We'll figure it out. We're kind of winging this. And use these as I guess notes if you want. Like if you forget something, then you can always refer to this quickly for like a quick reference on anything that we get like through class. And by the way, we'll in this today we're gonna try to finish making this project that I'm pasting in chat too. That link to Replit is like it's like an idea of what we'll be trying to get done today. It's a number guessing game where like basically, I'm just gonna go share my screen again. I'm sharing my screen right now. Basically, it looks like this. If I just quickly run on the side, we have, we could basically the purpose of this game is to guess a number. So the computer's gonna select a number from 1 to 10, and we have to find out what number the computer has. And for example, just a quick demo of this would be, let's say 5. Turns out that 5 is not the correct answer. Well, it's too low. So maybe you could try like 7. That's too high. So I guess we could try 6. And that's the correct answer. So we'll be making a game like this. Basically, quickly get us introduced to the concepts of Python. So yeah, that's the goal for today. So yeah, I guess it's time to get started since we're already quite a bit in. Okay. So, so I guess just to begin, by the way, as I mentioned before, Python can be used in many different ways, and the reason why we teach Python here is because it reads a lot like English, so it should be pretty easy to catch up on and to learn quickly. So that's why we're learning it here. And if you're interested in virtual reality or any other things like building games or maybe building websites, or if you're into like the machine learning bandwagon happening, then yeah, you can basically do all that with Python, since Python is such a powerful language. And so to begin, we're going to start with variables. So basically variables, oh, sorry, I don't know if I saw your question before with the import random. We'll get to the random stuff later. That's actually going to be one of the last things we do. So anyways, we're assuming in this class that you know absolutely nothing about Python, and if you don't know anything, then so if you don't know anything, you're good. You don't have to know anything. If you already do know stuff, then hopefully we'll catch up to you quickly. So basically, to begin, we're gonna start with variables, and variables are basically, and variables in programming languages are the same as variables in like in your math class, right? For example, in this equation you see here, 2x plus 3 equals 5. Well, x is just a variable, right? It kind of stands for a value. Like x is kind of like standing for 1 there. Like for example, we could basically rewrite this whole equation as like let's say 2 times 1 plus 3 equals 5, and it would make sense. We could just literally replace this x with like 1, and it'll basically be the exact same. Basically, it'll still be correct. And in programming languages, we can do the same thing too. We can kind of like use a proxy name to stand in for a value. So, for example, when we use programming languages, generally you'll see something like the name of the variable equals 1. And basically what that means here is that, oh, did someone join? I don't know.
There's no one in the waiting room.
basically the integer variable is equal to 1. This is basically how we define variables and give it a name. So in here, we're basically making a variable called x, and we're giving it the value of 1. And so now wherever we put x in our program, just like in math, we can just substitute it with the number 1. And fun fact, in Python and in many other languages, we can actually define variables to not just be numbers, but many other things too. Like we can make something called strings, which are basically just text. So we can basically store I want to. I guess we'll omit them. Sure, we'll omit them. So basically, we have a variable getting a string, which is basically just text. So we're storing text in this variable, and we're storing the number 1 in this variable. We're storing an integer. Remember, integers are like whole numbers, and that can include 0 or negative numbers. We can store decimals. We call them floats in Python. Basically, literally decimals, like pi over here, well, an approximation of pi, 3.1 for 1 pi 927. And we can also store something called booleans, which are basically just true or false, which sounds kind of useless for now, but oh, someone's re-entering again. Okay. So, and basically we can store variables that hold whether something is true or false, and we'll actually use that later. And one last thing before we actually start coding, we can actually convert between these types. So like, let's say you have a variable that was already like an integer. We can convert it into a string. We can convert it into text by just kind of wrapping it around str and putting it in between the parentheses here. And we can convert like text back into a number by wrapping it between parentheses and like preceded by int. And we could do the same with floats. We could convert text into like back into decimal numbers by wrapping it between parentheses here and proceeding with the word float. And we can also convert things to booleans, which sounds kind of weird that we're converting like numbers or text into true or false values. This is not really important now, but I guess fun fact, generally things that are 0 or empty in Python will evaluate to false, and otherwise it will be true. But you don't have to worry about that. So let's actually get started on coding something really quick. So to make our number guessing game, we're going to need I guess 2 main things. We're going to have to keep track of what the answer is going to be, like what the number is that we're actually trying to guess. And we're going to also need the variable, like we're also going to need a way to like store what the player is actually like guessing, right? So to do this, let's just create a variable called answer. Actually, is that font too small? I'm going to quickly make the font a little bit bigger, just to, oops, large, huge, yes. Okay, so we're going to quickly make a variable called answer, and this will basically be the number that we're trying to guess. For now, we'll just make it like 5 or something. That's like a random number. And let's pick another, and let's make another variable called guess. And let's just get another random number. So what we have just done here is create a variable called answer, and we've given it the value 8. And we've also created another variable called guess, and we've given that the variable 5. And what these variables can do is basically let us keep track of what the answer is and what the guess is. So yeah. Do you want to take the next one?
So like another important concept in programming is print. So this lets you display something in the console, which would be like so if you in the REPL, it's like that other tab that says like Python 3.8.2 on it. So that's where like your results go. So we can add a string inside the print statement to display text. So like you see in the slide, it says print hello world. If we did that, like hello world would appear in the console. So maybe we can show that in the REPL. Right. So if we type print hello world, then if I run on my end, does it run on your end? Well, yeah. So you see in the console it says "Hello World." Uh, so yeah, you can use the print statements to print text, or another really helpful way you can use it is to print variables. So, for example, we might want to print the value of the answer if we want to, just see what it is. So if you run that, you get 8, right? So we can use this to print strings. We can print text, right? We can print variables that we already have. Again, like we could print like any variable, so we could change it to guess. This time it'll say 5. Doesn't update on your end, but oh wait, why is it not like updating?
Oh
It's
no.
not updating. Maybe I'll reload.
I can reload too.
Yeah, but anyways, you can it lets you print text variables, and you can also do something called like string concatenation. So you can like combine the two. So maybe you want to say you guessed, and then the plus operator like combines those two strings. So it says you guessed first, and then after that it says the guess. So if I ran that, it would say, right? So because guess is a number, so it has to be a string in order for you to be able to concatenate it or add it together. So if we just change it to a string, then I'll say you guess 5, right? So another thing we might want to use is called input. So this lets us take input from the user. So this would be helpful when you're asking, okay, so what number are you guessing, right? So let's just kind of see a quick demo. So maybe you want to ask, well, what's your name? Right? We do this, right? You'll see it displays this, and it gives you a prompt to type something. So does it actually come? Oh, it comes on your screen too. Okay. So if I type, my name, nothing happens, but you can see like, the program kind of accepts that input. So how do we actually get that, that input? Well, we can save it in a variable, right? So if we say name, and if we set name equal to this whole thing, it takes the value of whatever you give it here and saves it in name. And since we have it stored in a variable now, we could use like the print statement from before to display it. So maybe you want to say hi and then name. So now if I type Jack, it says hi Jack. So in our case, what we would want to do is, well, we don't want to name, we want to guess, right? So now we can replace guess with an input. So we could say guess a number, right? And then now guess will equal whatever number we give it. So we can work from there.
Okay, so to move on.
Oh, and any questions so far? Anyone?
Oh yeah, don't forget that if you have any questions,
Yeah, just feel free to type in the chat.
Type it in the chat or turn on your mic, whatever is more comfortable for you.
All right, any questions? So, Elias, take it away.
Okay, so so we're gonna move on. So basically now we're able to like get a guess from the player, and that's cool and all, but like, what can we actually do with it now? So basically now we want to like compare the guess to our answer, right? So we want to see if the guess is actually the answer, or if it's too high, or if it's too low. And to do that, we're going to have to like check some things, and we're gonna need something called if, else if, and else statements. And if you see it in the slide over here, here's like an example of like a bunch of if and else if and else statements. So basically what's going on here is that if you put this code in your REPL, then this will basically first check like if, and so reading from top down, it's gonna check this thing over here, okay? And for pretend bool1 is a variable that holds a Boolean variable, a Boolean value. It's gonna first check this bool1 and see if this is true. And if it is true, then we're gonna head on down to this indented code over here. This is indented, which makes it special. The indent basically tells Python what to do once bool1 is true. And basically after it does that, in this case, if bool1 is true, and after it prints bool1 is true, then it'll basically then head on down. Actually, let me just redo that. It's actually actually gonna skip all this code over here and just go on to this print statement down here, which is considered outside of the if, else, if, and else stuff. What you could, so like, let's say that like, if there was just if bool1 and let's say there was just like nothing here, then assuming that like, this is just the code, if bool1 is true, it's gonna run this. If bool1 is not true, it's just gonna like skip this. It's just gonna pretend this is not there and it's just gonna move on to the print statement below, which is, yeah, considered outside of the if, else, if, and else stuff. So the else, if, and else are completely optional. But let's say you want to do something where, like, let's say bool1 is not true, but then what if bool2 is true? So assuming that like bool1 is not true, then it's gonna, so if it's not true, it's gonna skip over and now it's gonna check if bool2 is true. And if bool2 is true, it's gonna run this indented code. And once again, this indented code is really important. It's very important that you indent right after the else if stuff. By the way, ELIF is just like a shortened form of else if. We just kind of like mash the words together. Like if you say it real quickly, else if, and if you mash them together, you get elif. So else if just stands for else if. Let's kind of think of like if bool1 was that, if that's true, then do this. Else, if bool2 is true, then do this. And if bool1 is not true and bool2 is true, it'll be printing out this bool2 is true, but not bool1. And then after it does that, it's gonna just like pretend that there's nothing after it, and it's just gonna move on to the code that's outside of the if, else, if, and else stuff. It's gonna print continuing on. So that's the else if, the elif thing. And here's the thing though. So what if you're writing some code and let's say that neither bool1 nor bool2 are true, and you want like a catch-all, like if none of these are true, what's like the last resort thing? Like what's like the default like option? What's the default thing to do? Then let's say you're Python and you're interpreting this code. Let's say you're going on and let's say bool1 is bool1 true? Then well, no, it's not. So let's check bool2 instead. Is bool2 true? Well, no, it's not. Let's just move on. Now it's gonna check else. So else, there's really nothing to check because it's really just the catch-all. It's kind of like like I said before, it's kind of like the last resort. It's kind of like just the default option. Assuming that neither bool1 or bool2 is true, well, just do this anyway. Print this indented code instead. So in this set, so if neither bool1 nor bool2 are true, it's just going to print this. Neither bool1 nor bool2 are true. And after it does that, it's just going to continue on its way down the lines and print continuing on because this code is considered outside of the if, else, and else. The reason being for that is because it's not indented. Like these indented blocks are very, very important. Like these indents basically tell Python like what's after the if, what's after the elif, what's after the else. So the indents are very important in our case. So let's go back to our code really quick, and let's make it more fun. So basically in our game, we wanted to give feedback to the player whether our guess was too high or too low, so that they're not like guessing all 10 numbers from 1 to 10, because that would be kind of annoying. So what we could do is to write an if, else if, or any of that stuff, or else stuff, to actually check whether the answer is, whether the guess is the answer. So first let's check if it's too high. Well, we could do this is that if it's too high, then we're going to print too high. And one way to check this is by literally taking guess and greater than answer. I mean, it reads just like the math class. Is guess greater than answer? And if this is true, it's going to run indented code. In our case, let's print too high. Oh, and by the way, since we're comparing stuff, oh, someone's coming in. They're kind of late. I'll just mint them anyway. Hello, Sean.
Welcome.
Hello. We're actually somewhat far into the class, but I guess you could try to catch up anyway. Check the chat for like slides and special links and stuff, and like the example and stuff. So if you remember correctly, this input actually returns a string, and right over here, our variable answer it's an integer. It's 8. But guess over here, this variable actually holds a string because this input thing basically gives back a string. So to actually make sure our comparing is like makes sense, like what does it mean to like compare a number and some text? Like it doesn't really make sense. So to do that, we're just going to quickly convert this into an integer. And if you remember correctly, to do that, we just have to wrap it around parentheses and preceded by the word int. So now this text is now a number. So now over here, we're comparing guess and answer. So like now we're comparing not text against numbers, but now number to number, which actually makes sense. So now we can give feedback if it's too high. Let's just test this out really quick. Let's say we guess 10. It's too high. Well, obviously, because guess now gets 10. Because we inputted 10, converted that text back into an integer, and now it's checking if 10 is greater than 8. And it is, so we're going to print too high. So what if instead that they give a number that's lower than 8 or something like that, or something a number that's not greater than the answer. Then let's just say 5. If we just input 5, it's not going to do anything, and it's because we didn't write any code to handle that response. So to do that, what we could do is, well, check. So we're going to actually check if the guess that we gave was less than the answer, so we can actually give feedback on it. And to do that, you're going to use an elif. So it's kind of like, if guess is greater than answer, if that's true, then do this. Else, do this instead. And that do this instead is basically going to do like we're going to check instead if guess is less than answer. And if that's the case, then we're going to print too low. It's nice to give helpful feedback. So now let's try this out really quick. Let's say we guess 5 again, and it's printing out too low. Because remember, now we're inputting 5, and this text is being converted into an integer. So now it's comparing, is 5 greater than 8? No. Well, is 5 less than 8? Yes. So we're going to print too low. Now the thing is, if we actually do guess the right answer, nothing's going to happen, because we haven't written any code that handles that, because we've written code that checks whether it's too high, and we wrote code that checks whether it's too low, but we haven't written code that checks whether it's actually like the right answer and right on the dot. So to do this, what we can do is to write an else. If you remember correctly, the else is like the catch-all. It's like what it does if none of the other cases are true. So after checking all these cases and these all turn out to be false, well, it's kind of like saying do this code anyway. So if it's not too high, and if it's not too low, then it's just right. So we're going to print correct. So you got the correct answer, if I can spell. Correct. So now if we run this again, and I type in the number 8, which is the right answer, it's going to print out correct, because once we input 8, it's going to take that, convert that to an integer. It's going to check, is 8 greater than 8? No. Is 8 less than 8? No. Well, then it must be the correct answer. So we're going to print correct. So that's if, else, if, and else. We went through that pretty quickly. But does anyone have any questions before I move on? Like, I know this is a lot to take in. But yeah. If, else, if, and else, as you can see, makes certain code happen only in certain situations, and it can really make your program so much more powerful and much more fun too, because like, who likes code that does the same thing over and over again? I mean, unless you want that. Any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to turn on your microphone for a little bit or say it in the chat. No questions?
All right.
Okay.
So right now our code, it'll only run one time, right? So if I run it and I guess wrong, so maybe I guess 3 too low, and then the program just exits. I don't have a chance to like redeem myself, you know? So we gotta find a way to make it like keep going, keep letting you take guesses like until you get it right. Right. So the way we do that in Python is with something called a loop. So the way loops work is so we have what's called a while loop. If you look at the slide, it should be like the last one. So while loops have 2 main parts, right? The first is a condition, and the second is a like something to run. So if we look at this slide, right, Boolean would be the condition, and then print is the code that you want to run. So what this code does is, so every time it checks if Boolean is true, and then if it's true, it says print doing stuff. And then after it does that, it goes back to the top and says, okay, is Boolean still true? Oh, if it is, then it keeps running, and it goes on like that. And after that runs, it'll run the code after that. That's not indented, so in this case, that would be not in the loop. So just like with the if and the else if, indenting is really important because it tells Python, you know, what's in your loop and what's outside of your loop. So what's in your loop, you know, it'll keep running based on what the Boolean is, but what's outside the loop will only run after and not every time. Judy says, can you go back to the code and finish? Oh.
I sent the REPL link earlier on the class. Check the class earlier. If you click that link, you can get basically the example code. Actually, it's a little bit different, but the if, else, if, and else is the same.
Yep.
Like,
so then, yeah. Does that work for you? Can you send the link again?
Okay. Let me just quickly.
With the example, right?
Wait, Jack, can you
have access to the...
I don't think I can see chat while sharing.
All right. Wait, but they can't see the live one, right? So you have to send the example one.
Yeah, they don't have access to the live one.
Oh, okay. So here it is. So like what we just did with the if and else if. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No problem. So how does this relate to our code? Well, right now, right, as I said, it only runs one time. So we want it to keep running. And what would our condition be? Well, we want to keep asking the user what the number is as long as they didn't get it right. So the way we say that in Python, right, is we would have a while loop, and the condition would be answer is not equal to guess, right? So they didn't guess the right number. So guess does not equal to. Right? So in Python, we have equality and inequality. So if you want to check if 2 things are equal to each other, it's 2 equal signs. So maybe while they keep guessing it right, we want to run it or something. This says is guess equal to answer. And notice that it's 2 equal signs instead of 1, because one is assignment, as we saw before. So like for variables, we set a variable to a number that's 1 equal sign, whereas two equal signs checks if two things are equal. So it says is guess equal to answer instead of guess is equal to answer, right? But in our case, we want to keep running it while guess is not equal to answer, right? We want to keep asking the user for a number as long as they didn't get it right. So in our case, we would use does not equal, which is an exclamation mark and then an equal sign. So while guess does not equal answer, we want to do this. So we want to tell them, you know, the number you put in wasn't right. But then after that, what we want to do is ask them for a new number. So, right, we're going to add some code after this if statement. And if you remember before, if you undent it, that means it's outside the block, right? So it runs after the if statement and the else, all that. So in our case, what we would do, well, we just take this code again, you know, we just ask them for the number again. And then it'll go back up here and say, well, is answer equal to guess? And if not, then, you know, it'll keep going. So let's see what happens if we run this. So let's say we guess 5, right? Well, it tells us too low, and then it goes back to the bottom and tells us, oh, please guess another number. That wasn't right. So, right, and let's try guessing too high. So try 9, that's too high, right? But now if we try guessing 8, well, now we'll just exit because actually our code's written in a kind of like janky way. So the Boolean that the condition for our loop is while guess is not equal to answer. So it'll keep like checking and asking if the guess is not equal to answer. But if it is, then it won't go to the loop. So you know, this like the statement here where it checks if it's correct, that'll never run, right? So actually, this happens a lot in programming, right? So you have an idea, but sometimes you have to change around the order of things. So we ask for the new number afterwards, but actually what we want to do is ask for it before, right? So we can check the new number. So if we move this up here, that'll fix some things, but then if you look here, this will run, and then the loop will run, so it'll run again. So actually, you know, we don't want this to run twice. So just to avoid that, we can just set guess equal -1. So it'll never equal answer. So this will always run first. You know, if that doesn't make sense, then or you can use break and do while true. You could do that, but usually in programming, we try to avoid while true, but you know, that is another way that could work. And especially if you're doing, you know, web servers, you know, game loops, that's when, you know, while trues would be used. But usually we try to avoid them because, you know, it can lead to bad things happening if you code it wrong. But if we run it now, say we get 4, it's just too low, and try 9, it's just too high. But if we guess 8, it's just correct, and then it exits the program, right? It exits the loop, exits the program. What is the line after the colon? This line? That asks, no? Can you like say the line number? What is the line after the colon? Line does not work.
Do you know what line you're talking about? Can you like, is it the
a bunch of too lows? Did you add this this line, the guess? It sounds like you know, it's comparing the guess, but it doesn't like update it. All right. Yeah, just try that. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Is it working now? I guess.
Anyone else have any other questions? Loops are kind of confusing the first time around.
Yeah, it'd be kind of tricky with loops. As you can see, like it could spam a bunch of things by accident, so you have to be like really careful.
All right. Questions? How do you prevent the users from typing in letters? Okay, so we can also do that, right? So that might also be another use for a while loop, right? So maybe you could check, if the string has any letters in it, and if it can be converted to a number. But that's a bit more complicated, and we won't do that. But the fact that you think about it is pretty good because in programming, input validation is something really important. So it's good that you're thinking about that.
I guess we could do that if we still have time left in the class.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So anyone else have any questions? All right. If not, then we should probably move on. Next part.
Okay, so as you can see, we're actually almost done. All we need to do is basically have the computer generate a number. I guess this is a little bit of outside of the scope of what we're doing right now, but we're going to have the computer generate random numbers. This is not on the slides, sorry, but to do this, we're gonna have to put the special magic code at the top of the page. And we're gonna just type in from random import random. Yeah, this is outside of the scope, but if you really want to know what this is doing, it's basically just taking this function, this function called random, basically like a special line of code that basically triggers a bunch of other stuff from this file called random that's within the standard library of Python that anyone could just use. But yeah, it's a little bit too complicated for now. But yeah, just trust me that this does something that allows us to do what we're about to do right now. So to actually have it generate the random number, we're going to set our answer to guess to be random. And as you can see here, Repl is suggesting me to type something. If we just put these numbers 1, 10 here, well, actually, wow, it's just here right here for me. That's really nice. It returns a random integer in the range from A to B. In our case, it's going to return a random integer from 1 to 10 inclusive. So it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or any of that. So now answer could be any of those numbers. We don't know. I mean, we could print it out actually, just to show that it is generating a random number. Let's just print it out really quick. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing it for demonstration purposes. And every time I hit run, you should see that it's printing out a new number between 1 to 10. We're getting 1, we're getting 10, we're getting 9, we're getting 8, we're getting 6. I could do this all day. We're gonna get a different number every time. So now we know. Now we're pretty sure. We're pretty confident that answer will be a different number every single time between 1 and 10. And that basically makes our game, well, functional. So now we don't actually know what the answer is, and now we can actually try playing the game. So let's try guessing a number. Let's guess 5. That's nice in the middle. Oh, it's too low. So let's try making it higher. Let's guess, I don't know, 7. It's still too low. Well, we could try a number higher than that. Let's just try 8. Oh, I'll just try 9. Oh, that's too high. Oh man, 8 was actually the right answer. So if I type in 8, that should now say correct. Yep, it's correct. That was the right answer. And we guessed the right number between 1 and 10. So with that, we actually have our fully functioning game where we have to guess the number.
Simone says mine isn't working. Can you elaborate on that?
Wait, what happened?
Someone typed in chat that their thing wasn't working.
Oh yeah, what's not working? Should I let them share their screen?
Any help with it or?
Hello, can you hear
Hi.
me?
Hello, we can hear you.
So what's not working is it's not saying correct when I got it right.
Oh, so did you see what I did at the end, right? So I moved the guess, this part, I moved it to the top of the while loop instead of the bottom. Because if it's at the bottom, it'll check, it'll check if it's equal up here. So if it's equal, then it won't actually go through here.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, can you make the answer from 1 to 25 instead of 1 to 10? Yeah, sure. You just have to change the numbers you passed around in here. And congrats, everyone. You've made a very nice game in Python. So we have 8 more minutes. So does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, we could, I forgot who asked, but the input validation, we could work on that. Anyone have any questions? All right. So no one has any questions, then let's just start with it then. Oh, yeah. What's the question? Where are you gonna post the recording? Elias, where are we gonna post the recording?
I'm gonna eventually upload this video to our Generation Coders YouTube channel. And once the video is actually once I actually have the video on YouTube, then I'm gonna send this video to everyone who registered for this class. So yeah, you'll be able to access this video after this class. So I guess expect an email within hopefully a few days. It'll definitely be up there before next week. Oh, goodbye. Whoever has to go now.
What's the name of the channel again? Is it just Generation Coders?
To be honest, I haven't checked yet. I'll send the email to you though. Don't worry. I actually don't know what it is, but I'll ask someone to get it.
Yeah. Anyone else have any questions? No? All right.
No questions? Okay.
So let's do some input validation. Who asked about it before? It was Ryan. Well, it was a good point, right? We don't know. We can't always trust the user to type what we want them to type, so we have to check them on it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Are there any other websites where you can do this type of coding?
Do you not like Replit?
Oh no, I was just wondering.
I was just wondering. I know Khan Academy has like a JavaScript sandbox, but from what I know, Replit has like the most languages, and I think it's one of the better online ones. If you look it up, there's probably others, but Replit's the most well-known, probably the best one.
Yeah,
okay.
just look up online Python interpreter, and you'll probably get some sites where you could write Python.
Okay, thank you.
Then also, if you want to explore a little bit, you can also try downloading some software in which you could actually write Python on your local computer.
Yep.
There's software out there like PyCharm or VS Code, or there are a bunch out there where you can actually write Python code on your own computer too.
Yeah, you just have to look up download Python or something like that. Or maybe getting started with Python. There's a lot of resources online for that. So any other questions? All right, we're gonna try to get as far as we can with the input validation in the 4 minutes we have. Right, so this would be another while loop. So we would want to keep asking the user for their input while what they gave us is not valid. So Python actually has a function that can help us here. It's isNumeric. So that tells us if it's a number or not. So we want to like, you know, we want to check. We want to keep asking them while it's not a number. So we say while, and Python has some Boolean operators. So for example, not. So we would say while is not numeric. How do I spell it? All right, is numeric. Guess. Wait. Just kidding. It's a guess that is numeric. Wait, right?
I think it is numeric, but
All right. Okay. Okay. It's just not coming up. That's fine. Then if it's not numeric, then we just want to ask again. And if you're curious, this Boolean operator, you know, it just takes this and makes it true if it's false and false if it's true. And there's other Boolean operators like and, or, and those are basically the same as you know what they mean in English. So maybe you would say like if A and B, that just means if both are true, or you might have if A or B, so that's just if A or one of them is true. Right. So if we, oh, does it not update on your end? Oh, I added the wrong file.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. Do I just copy and paste it, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, so just down here. So if we run this, maybe you want to guess like apples. Wait.
Oh wait, it's first converting.
Oh, right. So, and then in here would be, so if it is numeric, then we want to convert it. Otherwise, just do it again. So now if we do it and we try apples, then it'll still crash.
Okay. Just a second.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Now if we try it, yeah, there you go. Apples, apple, maybe like 1A. But if step 1, too low, 4, too high, 3, correct. All right. Is that good for everyone? All right, I'll take that as a yes.
Okay, that's nice. I guess okay, we'll never give homework in this class, but I guess that's a fun extension. If you're still interested in this project, you could maybe make it so that you only have a certain number of guesses that you could use, just for fun. But maybe if you have to guess the number within a certain number of tries, maybe you can keep track of that.
Another exercise you could do, it's less to do with programming, but try to see if you can find a way to guess the right number in the least amount of steps. Okay. Just 2 things to think about. Yeah, good job everyone today.
There's actually a well-known method of doing this. So yeah, try to figure it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're basically about done here. It's 3 o'clock. So I hope you guys come next week. There'll actually be different teachers. Every time each of these classes happen, there's actually a different teacher. So we won't be teaching next week.
Unfortunately.
So yeah, you'll see someone else, but they'll pick off from where we left off here. So yeah, I hope to see you guys next week too.
Yeah, good job everyone.
Yeah.
Have a nice day.
Bye. Have a nice day. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Bye.